The CBC threw one of the most luxurious parties ever seen at the Toronto Film Festival, and you weren't invited. Oh, but you'll pick up the monstrous tab. That's tonight on The Source. Canada is wobbling on the edge of a double-dip recession. Our government is still running massive deficits. But it's party time at the CBC, literally. On Friday night, the Toronto Film Festival, a celebration of Hollywood-style glamour and luxury, was an excuse for CBC anchor George Strombo to throw one of the most lavish parties ever seen at the film festival. Here's the manager of Canada's most exclusive hotel, the Hazelton, boasting about just how far they were going to go to make it super awesome.
On the 9th of September, this room will magically transform into the hottest party of TIFF. And I'm not joking. Last year, this place was hopping. And this is, of course, George Stromboulopoulos' party.
Yeah, it's the Hazelton takeover. Second year in a row.
Second year in a row. This one promises to be even better, but it was known last year, and I'm not joking, as the hottest party of TIFF last year, so why not again this year? And what will happen here is all of these tables will disappear, the patio will disappear. Well, actually it won't disappear, it'll expand even bigger. They're shutting down Hazelton Street, there'll be a red carpet. It's going to be a great year.
Oh man, awesome! And that's not it. The Hazelton boasts that it's the only luxury hotel in Toronto with floor-to-ceiling windows that open, with remote-control lighting and motorized drapes, with German-crafted fixtures, Bulgari amenities, 300 thread-count Italian sheets, and on. Paris Hilton, eat your heart out. Now, some haters might ask, why is Stromboulopoulos hosting a party at the film festival? I mean, he doesn't have a film, but he likes to party. Hey, who doesn't? So Stromboulopoulos threw a party to celebrate, well, I don't know, I guess himself. Here's a picture snapped by one party-goer. That's Stromboulopoulos on the right, and that's a movie star on the left. You probably recognize the star. His name is John Hamm. He's the award-winning star of the TV show Mad Men. The guy on the right, well, just in case you missed it, there was a huge sign behind him with his name on it. George Stromboulopoulos, and the CBC's logo much smaller, of course. Now, I've got no problem with the Bacchanalia at the Toronto Film Festival, or TIFF as it's called. It's pretty fun. I've even been to some shows myself, and even managed to get some tickets once to the after parties. They're almost always sponsored by some brand of liquor or some movie studio. I mean, it's really fun. But why is the government broadcaster throwing a gold-plated party with taxpayers' dollars for a prima donna who just wants to, well, let's let Stromboulopoulos explain it himself. Listen to this.
I've always wanted to be in a band, not a solo artist. And I want to be in a community. I've always thought that community is interesting. An individual is a tree. A group of individuals is a forest, and forests are strong and they're beautiful and they work together and they feed other things and other things feed them.
Now, in fairness to Stromboulopoulos, it looked like he was asked this question after he had a few drinks, so his answer was a bit flowery. I invited Stromboulopoulos on the show today to talk about it. I also invited the CBC spokesman, Jeff Key, on. I invited Hubert Lacroix, the president of the CBC, on the show. Of course, none of them accepted my invitation, although Lacroix keeps promising he'll do so one day. Remember, I asked him on last month, and he wrote back to me. Here's his friendly email back then. He said, if we don't have it on the screen right now, that's fine. He said he'd come on, and when I asked him on again, he wrote back, oh, there it is. Dear Mr. Levant, thanks for the invitation. I'll let you know. Cheers, Hubert. I asked him on again today, and something tells me he's going to be just too busy again. He always writes back saying he's too busy. It's not really a surprise to me. Lacroix likes to take money from taxpayers, but he doesn't like the accountability that should go with that. He consistently refuses to disclose information as required by Canada's access to information laws. Those laws are supposed to apply to government agencies to help ensure that governments aren't wasteful with our money. But Lacroix says he's not going to give anything he doesn't want to, no documents, no access to information, unless a court orders him to. And he keeps appealing court rulings he loses if they go against him. Here's a clip of Hubert Lacroix, the CBC president, giving taxpayers a taste of his gratitude and respect for the $1.1 billion a year we give him. Look at this.
We believe that only a judge should have the right to demand the disclosure of information that relates to our creative activities or is journalistic or program related. It is important to clear up any confusion over the rules under which we operate.
Thanks for the cash. Don't ask any questions. Well, listen, our intrepid intern, Aaron, didn't want to take no for an answer, so he called up Jeff Key, the CBC spin doctor, personally. Here's Aaron asking about how much the party cost.
We just wanted to know what the budgeted cost was for that event, or how much it ended up costing in the end.
So that's not something that we would share with you.
Oh, and why is that?
I beg your pardon?
Oh, and why is that?
Because that would be competitive information, but it falls within our usual marketing budgets.
So the CBC throwing a party for itself with rock stars and movie stars is apparently a business and a confidential matter. Yeah, I got to remember the next time I order $10,000 worth of champagne for my friends, I'll just call it marketing and pass the bill off on someone else. Aaron then suggested to Jeff Key that we would file an access to information inquiry to find out how much of our money they blew on this party. It's our right, since it's our money. Now, Key would have none of it. Here's what he said.
If you wanted to test that theory, you could submit an access to information request.
Okay, fair enough. So we could file an access to information request and receive that type of information from the CBC?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you could file an access to information request, as you've done in the past, and if it's information that is available to the public, then you would have that.
Okay, so Strombolopoulos won't talk about it. Key won't talk about it. Lacroix won't talk about it. They're all partying like movie stars and sending us the bill, but they won't talk about how they're using our money. Well, fortunately, the Conservative cabinet minister who gives the CBC $1.1 billion a year made me a public promise to come on this show anytime to talk about CBC spending. Here's James Moore making that promise to me and, more importantly, to you.
I'm glad to come on anytime and talk about the CBC.
Yeah, right. Of course, Moore hasn't kept that promise. He hasn't come on the show since he made that promise, but he loves talking to the CBC. Of course he does. Here's him making lovey-dovey eyes with Strombolopoulos himself.
Here's what's going on from our side. We made a campaign commitment that we would maintain or increase funding for the CBC. We've increased funding for the CBC in every single one of our budgets at a time of deficits and recessions globally and across the country.
Can you see in Strombolopoulos' eyes as he hears James Moore talking about funding, he's thinking, Toronto Film Festival, party, champagne. That's what I think he was thinking when Moore said, I'll give you all the money you want. Look, the CBC throws itself a massive party, the finest party in the finest hotel in Canada, with the finest red carpet and the finest finery you can find. But you're not invited. I'm not invited. But we're sent the tab because we're stupid little taxpayers. Strombolopoulos won't tell us. His spokesman, Jeff Key, won't tell us. And he's got a good chuckle. Key did when we said we'll file access to information request. They laugh because they're not going to answer it. CBC President Hubert Lacroix keeps saying he'll come on our show, but he never does. And he even had the chutzpah to tell Parliament he won't disclose details of spending unless he's actually forced to by a court. Oh, and then there's James Moore himself, the man responsible for this mess, an alleged Conservative who promised on this show, this very show, to answer questions, but still hiding from you. Here's his broken promise. Again, roll it.
I'm glad to come on anytime and talk about the CBC.
No, you're not. Why did you say that? Look, I've got nothing against having fun. I've got nothing against partying like a movie star. But every other party at the film festival that I've ever seen is sponsored by private companies, big, profitable companies like movie companies, like fashion companies, beverage companies, PR firms, people who earn a profit. They earn their own money so they can spend their own corporate budgets on parties if they want to. It's none of our business. Only the CBC had the audacity to blow our money to buy a party for a vain wannabe rock star. I sent Jeff Key an email asking him to at least narrow down the cost of the party for me. Was it more or less than $1 million? More or less than $250,000? I don't know. And did it make sense to spend that much money on a vanity Sweet 16 party for Strombolopoulos when the country is in economic difficulties and the CBC itself is having a tough time? I mean, the CBC claims that it's poor. They always do. That's why, for example, they claim they can't upgrade more than 20 of their broadcasting signals in Canada to digital, as all private broadcasters were forced to do this year. The CBC said they just don't have the money. They even ran a sob story about it on their own channel, saying how unfair it is that the CBC is asked to do what every other broadcaster is. What the CBC didn't say in that propaganda item is the reason they can't afford to upgrade is because they're blowing their money on parties, on champagne and caviar. I'm not anti-party. I like to party. I normally party with the janitor in my apartment who doesn't speak English. And by party, of course, I mean just sort of standing around drinking a warm beer and crying. I'm not mad at Strombolopoulos and his party because I wasn't invited or because I didn't get the chance to fawn over left-wing pop stars like U2's Bono. Party on. I mean, I'm mad because this is not how government money should be pissed away by a crown corporation crying poverty. I'm mad because the entire CBC chain of command, all the way up to James Moore, thinks it doesn't have to answer for this Caligula-style excess. And I'm mad because the CBC is so utterly contemptuous of taxpayers. Let's look at Strombolopoulos' excuse one more time. This is what he told one party goer about why he's throwing the bash.
I've always wanted to be in a band, not a solo artist. And I want to be in a community. I've always thought that community is interesting. An individual is a tree. A group of individuals is a forest, and forests are strong and they're beautiful and they work together and they feed other things and other things feed them.
That's why you paid for the party, people. This wasn't about marketing or business. This was about one man's ego and weird childhood fantasy of being popular, about one man liking to hang out with really cool people. Translation, buying fancy friends with your money. Oh, and about you, well, the CBC did actually spend some money on you. Look at this picture. Do you see the riot fence? They put up police-style gates to keep out the uncool people, the people who wear Dockers up a little bit too high. The public was not allowed to attend the party. The public was forced to pay for it, but they weren't allowed in it. Look at those fences. Ew, gross. Taxpayers. How uncool. Look at those fashions. That's so 2009. The CBC doesn't give a damn, and neither does James Moore. This is crazy. But how about Stephen Harper? Is this his sort of thing? I mean, he's the Prime Minister, for crying out loud, and he himself doesn't live this multi-millionaire lifestyle. How does Stephen Harper, the Conservative, feel about this conspicuous consumption on the taxpayer's dime, this indulgence, this Hollywood living? Is this keeping with the Conservative mandate? Does this fit with his austerity plans for the country? Or will it be the last 5 years where James Moore keeps gorging the CBC on tax dollars while the rest of us take the economic hit? Why not send Stephen Harper an email to let him know what you think of this hedonism on your tab? Send an email to pm@pm.gc.ca. Tell him you don't care if the CBC wants to live it up. Just let them do it using their own money.